Please welcome developer advocate Timothy Jordan.
Hi everyone, how you doing? All right, I should say konnichiwa. So this is me. I'm a developer advocate on Google+, and you can find me online at timothydordan.com/plus. And I hope that you do, because the conversation we have today is really just about us getting started. There's a hashtag for this and all your other sessions today. It's #GDD11JP. And I'd like to take just a moment to show you a cool feature in Google+ for using hashtags. We just released this recently. If you put in a hashtag in search, you'll notice that you get a nice stream of all the posts, public posts that contain that hashtag, which is cool, right? So you can go to search and search for this hashtag throughout the day. Even cooler is that you can save this search. Right up here, there's a button for Save This Search. When you click on that, it'll appear right over here, just under What's Hot, with your other interests. So throughout the day, if you want to go back to Google+ and see what the latest posts are, you can just click on your saved search. This works for hashtags throughout the day here, other conferences you might go to, or any topics that you might be interested in. For example, I also have theater, Google, and roller derby, which are three of my favorite things. So today we're going to be talking about the +1 button. I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about the Google+ project. Now, you heard a lot about this from the keynote this morning with Brad, but I'd like to take a look at a couple of my favorite features. And then we're going to go into the +1 button. We're going to go through getting started, best practices, and we're going to take a look at authorship and search. And of course, our questions and answers are going to be after this session in office hours right outside. So I hope that you gather your questions throughout the session and come and let's have a conversation. Of course, anybody who comes up to me while they last, I'll give you a +1 button pin. You're the closest, so I'll give you one right now. The guys in the front row always get the best grades, by the way. So the Google+ project is something that's very important to me personally, not just us as a company. And I think for me, this is because I sort of stopped sharing online. Because I only had the option to share with everyone in the whole world or no one at all. And that wasn't a good option for me. I had my friends, my family, my classmates, my colleagues, all in this group of friends online, and either they were all equal or it's all public. But with the Google+ project, we introduced something called circles. And circles allow you to share with who you want, how you want. So I can now share with just my friends and family, or just my family. And it's made it so that now I'm sharing a lot more online. I'm sharing several times a day. You might not know it, because maybe you're just in one or two of my circles. Or sometimes you'll just see the public posts. But I'm sharing with my friends and family when I wouldn't otherwise share publicly. Another thing that I want to mention is Hangouts. And for me, Hangouts are really cool because they're this 10-person, high-fidelity video chat that's free. That's neat. But for me, the particular thing that's really cool is how you start a Hangout and how you join a Hangout. I grew up in a small town, and I would often, after the school day was done, go to a local cafe and just spend time there with my tea or a book or something. And it was small enough a town that frequently friends and family would swing by and join me at that cafe. And for me, the Hangouts experience is like the online, full-scale version of this. Friends around the world can happen to see the Hangout in my stream and join if they wish. That's really cool. Mobile. So we have an amazing mobile experience, right? A lot of us have these wonderful smartphones in our pockets that allow us to do really almost desktop-rich activities now, wherever we are. And we wanted to make an experience for these phones that allowed you to share your life when it happens, which is throughout the day. Not just at the end of the day when you get to your computer and you're on the desktop and you share something, but like right now. So there's my favorite feature of this is instant uploads. As I take photos throughout the day, it automatically uploads them to the server to a secure album. And when I go to share from my phone, I select the photo, it's already uploaded, and my post gets posted like that. Otherwise, if at the end of the day I realize that there's photos that I haven't shared yet, and I go to my stream, my notifications, it'll show me you've added new photos via instant upload. Would you like to share them now? It just makes it easier to share the way you do in real life, how you do on your terms. And of course, the last feature, and this is really a feature, is you. Larry Page recently said, last quarter we launched the Plus, and this quarter we're launching the Google. Yeah? Putting you first across all of our products is something that's really important to us, adding people to our products, your friends and your family. And of course, this session and the other API sessions that you'll see today are about how you can also do that on your websites. So let's start with the +1 button. The +1 button you can see on search. And how it looks is you've got this long list of search engine results. Right up there at the top, next to the link, you'll see a +1 button. And just below, this is the cool part, you'll see the personal annotation. These are friends of mine that have +1'd this web page. And that's meaningful to me when I make a search and there's people whose faces and names I know next to a particular search result. Once I click the +1 button, it lights up and it adds me to that list. So now people who know me may see me next to search results for that page. It's also available on ads, and we found that the +1 button is also cool once you know you like the website. For navigational queries and like you're looking up a phone number of your favorite restaurant, you're going to hit the +1 button in search. But for things like movie reviews, you might want to visit the site first. So we've made it possible for a +1 button to be on your web pages. And you get many of the same features of the button in search. For example, you can have an inline annotation right on the page. Or you can wait for the user to hover over the button and then they see the inline annotation right there. I click the button, it lights up just like anything else. And this, right? This annotation might be driven from an organic result, a search ad, and from your website. And it all goes to the same bucket of +1s. Yeah? The same personal annotation in search, wherever the user clicks that button. And recently we've also added this Share on Google Plus box that when you click in there, adds this plus snippet, gives you an option to add your own message and share with your circles. And so what I've done here is that I've shared this Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows movie with my witches and wizards circle. Right? Because all those muggles in my other circles probably aren't going to care too much about this movie. The other thing that I wanted to mention about this before I hit the next slide is, again, this plus snippet. This is driven by markup on your site, which means you get to define this. So you get to add the richness to the start of this conversation on Google+, and a more rich conversation on Google+ could mean more traffic back to your site. So the +1 button, it may increase CTR on search results. Search traffic is pre-qualified. Publishers tell me time and time again that traffic coming from Google.com is more valuable on their site than traffic from other sources. And for the single reason that users on Google.com are searching for something in particular. I want this. So when they click on that, they're already in this state of capture. They're ready to buy. Imagine that same user, but also with a recommendation. Not only are they ready to buy, but their father said they liked that lawnmower, yeah? Or their brother said, I enjoyed reading this book. Yeah, that recommendation is already with them. And then finally, you can allow your user to share on Google+ the way they want with who they want using circles. And there's some numbers that back this up. I mean, 9 out of 10 people trust recommendations from folks they know. And that just makes sense. That's sort of obvious. 7 out of 10 people take reviews from friends and family members, and those influence their purchasing decisions. Right? Again, this is sort of obvious. This one was a little less obvious. 2/3 of people are more likely to share with one of their circles than to make a public or general post. Right? When I talked about Google+ at the beginning of this talk, That was true for me. I don't know if it's true for you, but think about it. You know, throughout your day, what holds you back from sharing? For me, it's mostly my audience. All right, so that's the +1 button. How do we get it on our webpage? It's actually very, very easy. We have a +1 button configuration tool. You just fill out this form and copy and paste some code, and it will work. Done. It's a fast button. It's on your webpage. It's already optimized to be fast. There are a couple finer points that I'd like to mention, though, especially if you're deploying the button at scale. Let's take a look at the basics. At its most basic, the +1 button's code is a script tag up there at the top and a +1 tag. The script tag, when included, will replace all the +1 button tags with +1 buttons. Simple as that. This is slightly more complicated, but only in appearance. It's the same thing, has a +1 button tag at the top, but then this is our asynchronous snippet, which means that the button and your page will load in parallel, instead of the button loading and then your page. So by using the async snippet, you ensure that the button assets don't slow down your page load time. This is a very basic page. You'll notice that we have the script and the +1 tag. And you'll notice something new. This is a link rel equals canonical. Who already uses rel equals canonical links on their web pages? All right. It's so good that I'm here. This is really important. This is good not only for the +1 button, but also for search. And this is the problem that we're looking at, is that you have a web page, and this is a retail site with a bunch of products. And on the left are different URLs that show essentially the same content. Right? The text of the URLs is important. But think about it like this. Maybe you have a list of products and you can sort by relevance, or by price, or by recently added. And all those give you slightly different URLs because you add that question mark, sort equals price or something, right? And to search engines, this can look like a different page with different content, but it's actually the same content, right? Or what if this was a user ID that you're adding to the URL to track users on your page, right? It could be any number of things. So for Google.com and for the +1 button, you want them to know that it's the same content. Yeah? For search, you want that because you want a single result to appear in search for that content. For the +1 button, you do not want a click on each one of these URLs to be a distinct bucket of +1s that might show up in search. What you want is these 3 URLs going to the same bucket of +1s. And to do that, we use rel equals canonical. There are 3 things that we look at for the URL. The first is href, then rel canonical, then the URL of the page. You would use href if you had, say, a blog homepage and you have multiple articles and you want a +1 button next to each one. You'd want that button to +1 the page of the article, not the listing of articles. So you'd use the href to indicate that, and then you could have multiple buttons on a page that all +1 different URLs. All right, so if we don't find the href, then we'll look for the rel equals canonical. And if we don't find rel equals canonical, we'll use the document.location.href, which could include these get params that could mess up the whole thing. So I really recommend you use one of the top 2. And most commonly, probably the rel equals canonical. All right, let's jump back to this plus snippet. The plus snippet is right here, and the key thing here is that you don't have to add any content to your pages to use a plus snippet. You just mark up the pages that are already there. And you can do that with any number of markup styles. We've got schema.org, Open Graph, Meta, and Best Guess. And we'll look in that order. We recommend schema.org. And we do this for a couple reasons. First, schema.org is structured markup already supported by the 3 major search engines, Google, Yahoo, and Bing. The second reason is that you might already be using schema.org for rich snippets. Now, this is an example of a rich snippet. I was searching for one of my favorite Thanksgiving dishes, stuffing. Right? And what I see here is I've got 5 reviews, And I've got a description. And this is a complete sentence, right? This isn't some text we found on the page. This publisher site said, this is the description I want to appear. And they did so with structured markup. That same structured markup for these for the rich snippets will work for plus snippets. So what we're going to look at here when we add the markup is a name, a description, and an image. And it looks like this. It's a very simple web page with the markup already added. The markup is just the microdata in those tags. We've got an item scope at the top that defines the parent tag. I've gone easy here and added it to HTML. We could have added it to a body or a div tag. The important thing is that item props are all children of that tag. The item type, which is article, a very basic item type. There's many item types. You should use the one specific to your page. You can look at schema.org for a whole list of types. And then we've got item props. Remember I said name, description, and image. And you'll see the item prop name is just in the title tag, right? Because that's where the name is. That's the title of the page. The item prop is a description. This is up at the top. This could be a span or a div or any number of tags. And then the image is actually on the image tag. If I were to take this markup out, this web page in a web browser would look the exact same. We don't have to add any content. We just add the markup to our template, and our whole site is ready for plus snippets. All right, a couple best practices. First off, faster button. Everybody loves a faster button. So you should think at least a little bit about this. The first way you get a faster button is, well, we've done it for you. We made the button faster, and we're always working on speed improvements. The second thing is that you can get the asynchronous snippet. Remember I said by using the async snippet, you have the button render outside the rendering of the page so that it doesn't block the page rendering. They load in parallel. Next best practice I'd mention is where to put the +1 button. It makes sense, and it's just sort of obvious to have the +1 button on a leaf page, right? Imagine the tree here, and out of the leaf are our product pages or our articles on our blog. You want to +1 those items. People search for those things. It makes sense. But what about the branch? So on a retail site, instead of just this hats page, how about all your hats, right? What if I'm just searching for fedoras, right? I might search for that on google.com. I might want to also see a personal annotation for that. And finally, what about at the root level, right? The bottom of the tree, mashable.com, right? They've actually done this. They've added the +1 button at their brand level so that when you +1 mashable.com and a user is searching for technology news and mashable.com comes up as this navigational query, you may see that personal annotation there. And this is a huge bucket, right? They're able to get a lot more +1s on their brand level than they are on any one leaf node that's relatively transient. Callback. The callback is a way that you can make the +1 button more powerful for your users. Now imagine this. In recent conversation, I talk a lot with publishers and websites who are doing this kind of thing. And one of the things I heard, as much as a year ago is they said, Timothy, I really like getting more traffic from social websites. That's awesome. So we definitely want to optimize for sharing out to these networks, sharing out to these sharing services, and getting traffic back. We want to see those personal annotations in search and get that traffic back. But we are also starting to add community on our site, right? These social actions shouldn't just be restricted to having social activity somewhere else, right? You want to have social activity on your website as well. And you can use a +1 button to enable this. You don't always have to roll your own solution for everything, right? You might want to use a common login instead of rolling your own login. Well, you might want to use the +1 button, excuse me, instead of a unique expression of affinity. Maybe the user presses the +1 button on your website, and you use that data to improve their experience and the experience of your website. And you can do this. It's already baked into the button. It's a callback. So technically what this does is it'll call any function in the global JavaScript namespace that you identify. Or if you use the JavaScript API, you can also specify the function as a closure right there, right? So you can even use this in fun Ajax-y fashion. And what this gets you is you can do one of two major things, or hopefully something I didn't think of. But these are the things that I sort of roughly thought of when I made this slide. You can surface content immediately. So imagine again that you're a retail site, and I'm looking at a hat. I like hats. And I +1 this hat. I think it'd be really cool from my experience that when I hit that +1 button, other similar hats appear. Because you +1 this button, you can tell the user this. Because you +1 this button, here are other hats that you might be interested in. Or what if I'm on a technology news subsite, right? And I'm +1ing all these technology articles I like. But the whole news website has all sorts of different kinds of news. But I'm always +1ing technology articles. That's information you can track and store with a user cookie or with login. And when the user arrives on the .com again, you can surface technology articles. Because you've +1'd articles like this in the past, here's some recommendations for you. So what you're doing is you're giving that user an activity they can make on their site that they get value from on your site. And at the same time, you're encouraging them to press the +1 button where it makes sense for them, which is going to drive more personal annotations on search and potentially get you more traffic. All right, so it's the 1-2 punch. You get that affinity on your site, and you can get more traffic out of it. So let's look at how you do this. This is some basic code, right? And so what you see is there's this script tag for the +1 JavaScript, and here's a +1 tag. The new attribute I added is this, the callback. And I've actually put in the identifier, basic callback, which is up here in the global JavaScript namespace. Now all this does is raise an alert box. But you can imagine you could do anything with this. The things that I've mentioned, or you could try something even new. Now we do have terms of services about what you can and can't do. It gets a little fuzzy around contests, and you can't buy +1s, but you can surface unique content, you can tailor the experience, you can do lots of really great things. Just making sure that the spirit of this is that the user's +1ing where they would normally want to +1. All right, let's take a look at a quick demo. Who loves demos? I love demos. All right, this is what we got. So I just slapped this web page together, and I'll look at the relevant code in just a moment on a slide. But how this works is I'm going to put in a search term. Let's just say, I don't know, Japan. And when I hit submit, it's going to use that search term to search over the Flickr API. Now I chose the Flickr API because I wanted to demonstrate with this example code that you could do this across services with multiple different types of data. Yeah? So what I've done is I found images with the keyword Japan in their title. And I can actually scroll through these. So I find one I like. Ooh, flowers. I like flowers. So you can see I've already +1 this. Let me go ahead and +1 this again. And what you'll see is I've taken the title of this image, I fed it back to the Flickr API, and I've given relevant images to the user. So as a user experience, this is kind of neat. I know when I hit that button, I'm going to get something right now that's useful to me. And at the same time, I'm telling everybody that I like the URL of this image. Yeah? And this +1 button, by the way, is being rendered dynamically with Ajax so that we're setting the URL of the image on Flickr, not the gallery page. So when users see these personal annotations for all these different images, it's not going to be the gallery, it's going to be this actual image. Right? That's really valuable for the users and their friends and family. And this code is actually really simple. There's only two functions that are terribly relevant. First is rendering the +1 button for a particular URL. And you can see I'm using the JavaScript API, GAPI, or we say gappy.+1.render. I'm specifying the container to render the +1 button in. This is just the ID of a div on the page. And I'm setting the href to, a parameter that I'm getting into the function, which is the URL of the image on Flickr. And then I'm setting the callback, again, +1 callback. And that's this function down here. The +1 callback gets an event object with two different values. One is the state, and the second is the URL. The state tells us whether it was an on or an off. An on means the user +1'd it, and the button turned blue. An off means they +1'd that. They undid their action, and the button turns gray again. So in this case, you'll notice I had already +1'd it, and when I hit that button to +1 it, nothing happened. We fell into this else here. Yeah? But when I +1'd it, I actually got new photos. Yeah? And this is get photos, and it's doing a callback to add relevant photos. It's just adding them to the page. So you can see for a relatively, kind of complex set of API calls, the actual +1 business is really simple. All right. The last best practice is analytics. There's two places you can get analytics. The first is Webmaster Tools, and the second is Google Analytics. Webmaster Tools is really great for tracking what pages are getting +1'd, who is +1'ing these, like anonymous demographic data, and how much does the +1 affect your click-through rate on search. Google Analytics is really good for tracking social actions and multiple buttons across your site. Google Analytics, I have some screenshots here. This is the really interesting number right here. This is the % change in click-through rate for a result in search that has an annotation versus one that doesn't. We also have demographic data, and this is going to show up once the numbers are big enough that it can actually be anonymized. And of course, this is Google Analytics. Now for the +1 button, the data will show up in Analytics within about an hour after adding it to your site, right? Either in Webmaster Tools or GA. For other actions, you just need to add track social, right? This tracking tag to your web page, and you'll be able to track some of these other social actions. So that's the +1 button. There's one thing I wanted to mention before we get done here, before I wrap up, and that's authors and search. These topics really overlap. The people I talked about the +1 button also often want to hear about this. This is why I'm mentioning it. And it's also a people thing. It's a people and search thing. And you may have noticed this already when you're searching and you see articles in search and you see these people's faces. Yeah? These people are the authors of these articles. And these are actually their Google Plus profile photos. Setting this up is really easy, yeah? And it's impactful for your users. For me, when I search on Google Search and I see an author that I know, that's meaningful for me for when I click on whichever link I do. Again, setting it up is really easy. You do two things. One, you create a link from the author's profile photo, or I'm sorry, from the author's profile to your publishing site. All they have to do is log on to their profile, add a link, quite literally, and then just paste in the URL of the news site, of the publisher site. And then on the articles, you just add some simple markup. So on each article, you want to link back to the author's profile, and in that link, add a rel equals author. Right? This is a fancy HTML5 way of indicating that this link goes to the author of the page that I'm on, or of the article that I'm on. If you have a content management system that makes adding attributes like this difficult, add a question mark rel equals author at the end of the URL, and it'll work just as well. All right, so we've talked about the +1 button, we've talked about authorship. What are your next steps? I recommend using the +1 button. Yeah. As far as the Google APIs go, it starts with the +1 button. And setting it up is really easy. Next, invest in plus snippets. Adding these plus snippets to your website is actually really easy. You don't have to add any markup. You just you don't have to add any content. You just mark up the content that's already there. Show authorship and search. If you follow this Google short link, it'll take you to the help article that gives you more detail on showing authorship and search. And check out the public data and Hangouts APIs. If you go to developers.google.com/plus, you get more information on the +1 button, the public data APIs, and the Hangouts APIs. And with these, you can really start adding people to your website as they are on Google+. And remember, we've just begun. Yeah? With these APIs, you get to play this game that we think is so important. Yeah? What we've done with the internet over the last decade or so is given people a way to communicate really across boundaries. But up until now, that communication has been mediated by an artifice, this sort of artificial way of actually speaking back and forth. Take email, for example. I have to fill out this to field with this address that's not really meaningful as you. And I have to add a subject, and I have to add this body, and then I'm done, and maybe I add an attachment. Yeah? But what if I want to share with a group of people? What if I want to share like a photo and just have comments on that? What if I just want to share what I'm doing right now? This natural way of sharing is important, and that's what we started adding with Google+. And that's what we hope you can start adding to your web pages with the +1 button and our APIs. Thank you for coming. Arigatou gozaimasu.
以上でセッションを終了させていただきます。